Welcome, Manuela, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's an honor
Mm.
to be here.
So, the first question I'd love to ask you is what makes you your highest self?
I think to me, highest self means our highest potential and our highest ability to be what we come here to be. And it's been a journey to get there, and it continues to do so. But I think for me, opening and really unveiling what I'm here to do and keeping my focused vision, um, movement, dance, joy, creativity always connects me to my highest self.
100%. I agree with all of those things. Yeah, it's just to live in the flow of creation. I think that's why we're really all here. And I think sometimes we can get so stuck, and we'll talk about that in this episode of like, is this spiritual? Is it not? Am I doing it right? And like that analytical mind. And it's like we're losing the whole point of what spirituality is all about, which is just to connect to our hearts and to embody that ecstatic expression that we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Creative channels, all of us.
Exactly. So, a lot of people listening to this podcast, they are on their spiritual journeys, but they still wouldn't say necessarily they're like having conversations with their spirit guides or like getting messages from their ancestors. Or when someone says, "Oh, I had a download," they might not be, they're like, "I don't know if I am having a download or not. Like, is it my intuition? Is it my ego? Is it my highest self? Is it my past life?" Like, they're having a hard time knowing what's their intuition and what's not. And for yourself, as an intuitive who's like, so like, you're like, you came in my room, you're like, oh, Stephen obviously sleeps on this side of the bed. Like, how did you know? I don't know. But how, like, can you give us any kind of tangible tools of how can we pick up on something that's really coming from our intuition?
Absolutely. So, actually, speaking of creativity, the biggest way you can connect to that intuition, to that highest self, is creativity. We're all different human beings. We're all different everything. So, what I tell you is going to be different from what I tell somebody else. For me, my journey has taken me through steps of writing, right? So, writing, like, one of the biggest tools that I have really tuned into is automatic writing. So, I create a space, a sacred space for myself. I light a candle. I stare. I'm not a deep meditator, but when I do tune in, I use tools such as, for example, the candlelight. And I look at the candle for like 10, 15, whatever. Let yourself get lost in that candlelight, and you'll have a conversation, and try to keep your mind in blank. By doing that, then grab your pen and paper. Hopefully you'll have it nearby, and then just allow yourself to just write whatever comes, because that's a way to actually clear your channel for memories and moments and things to just actually come to you. Movement and dance is another way to just actually allow your body to move in whatever way, to not have to move how you were taught, but allowing your fingertip to separate from your wrist, your hand to separate away from your hand, and actually allowing the movement to take you on a journey. Our ancestors and so many cultures use trance music, trance dance, to transcend, to transform, to trans access to that's beyond the veil. So movement, writing, and that automatic writing would be trans as well. So it's allowing something bigger than yourself to come through you, to actually activate through you and write through you or move through you. If you're a musician, to sing through you, like, not to curate what you're going to sing, but just moving through the like different notes and the different, um, let yourself be. And I think that's the biggest thing that has happened for us as human beings, is we as children are some of the most intuitive people I know. Children are completely intuitive, and the minute we get told how to do things is when we start blocking ourselves to actually accessing that connection to the highest self, to the highest. And that is something different for everybody, right? God, Saraswati, Ganesha, all the deities, all the goddesses, all of that. That's really our connection to that highest, as and it's beautiful that you started this with that question, because that's our highest self. So
Mm.
connection to ourselves and opening and creating that channel is really just allowing us to wash the blockages and wash the conditioning that we've been given since children.
Yeah, 100%. So, would you recommend practices like, having different cards and like guessing what's behind each card and like any practices like that to like try to see the unseen? Do you think that these practices can help us become more intuitive, or do you think intuition just sort of results when you are more creative, meditative, etc. in your life?
There's different practices for everyone. So that's a beautiful question as well, because those are tools that support our intuition. I started with the pendulum, actually. I don't know if, the pendulum for me was one of my biggest, like, sensing. And the pendulum is a little bit off
Can you
track.
share how people could use a pendulum?
Of course. So how I started was to, on a piece of paper, I would put a circle, and then that circle would divide in two. And so one side would be yes, one side would be no. And usually when you first get a pendulum, I kind of speak to it, and I have a conversation with it, and we have a yes for me is a circle going clockwise, and then no is a very clear back and forth no. And so with that pendulum, you really make it yours. So some people might have the yes be the back and forth, some people might have the no be the circle. It just depends on how you're feeling and how you're intuiting. So intuition for me is really actually trust. It's like trusting the first thing that comes to your mind. So it was a practice for me, again, to really just like delve and trust myself, to that, like, for intuition comes with clairvoyance, with sensitiavoyance. It comes with all these different things of, some of us can hear the spirit, the guide, the whatever you believe in. Some of us can see it, some of us can feel it, right? So for me, when I am intuiting and I tune into somebody, it's a very clear movie. It's like it shows me a picture. So you named, Stephen sleeping on that side. To me, it was like I intuited because I could feel his energy, and it was like a picture in my mind. And then it was like, trust that. That was the first thing that came. So I didn't go back and forth of like, no, but he sleeps on this side. No, it was just like, that was the image that came, and I trusted that. And again, the pendulum just supports that.
How do we know if it's our intuition or we're making a judgment?
Oh, that's a strong one. And that, to me, really is about embodying that intuition. That's really like being connected to your body, being connected to what are the signs in your body that decide and tell you what is intuition and what is not. So for me, another body signal is that I get chills. But to get chills,
Every time we're talking, you're like, I have chills, I have chills. Yeah.
Which I have right now, which I know that it is spirit coming through and speaking through me, so it is. I have this awareness of my body that I have these signs. So some people, like, their eye blinks, some people they twitch, some people, it's getting to really understand and know the map of your body in a way where it's like, before you go anywhere else, before you go to anybody else around you, understand yourself and understand how you work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my mom used to get palpitations, the heart. She would, like, her heart would palpitate when she felt something was true. And that was an exquisite embodiment of knowing how you can trust yourself. It's all about trust.
So, have you ever been in a situation that you meet someone and maybe at first you like don't like them, or you feel like something's off, or you just don't want to be their friend, and then later you get to know them and you actually really like them? Well, how come our first response was to not like this person if they actually were a good person? And then how do we know whether to trust that first instinct when in the past we may have been wrong about it before?
Right, and that's judgment. Right, that's our first mask. Imagine, like, the first thing that comes to me when you ask me that question is, how many masks are we wearing as human beings? wow, like what a powerful question. Because if we were to start taking those masks off, like who are we actually seeing? And it all goes back to that first question you asked. It's like, how do you see yourself in your highest self? You know, it's like the amount of masks I've taken to get here to this moment, to this interview is, I can't even name them. You know, it's been mask after mask, trauma, family relationships, our friendships that we surround ourselves with. So what are we actually judging? Are we actually judging the person that's behind the mask, or are we seeing the person with the mask on? A lot of us automatically connect to the person with the mask on. And that's what we are like, oh, that's an energy, that's a dark energy. We don't even know what that person is going through, right? So I often trust my intuition when I feel something that's heavier. And I often also just stop, pause, and ask myself, okay, what is here? Is that me projecting onto this person something that I'm feeling about them? Or is this something that this person is actually carrying? So I really actually attempt with that to take a minute, take a deep breath. What is it actually happening here for me? You know?
Yeah, I think it's like it's hard because we have trauma bonding, you know, so you might be really, really attracted to, you know, a relationship or even a friendship, but that attraction could be based in the trauma that was there from, you know, your mother or your father or whatever. But then also it could be a repulsion of, you know, maybe you're jealous of that person, you know, and like those are two very different things. So do you have any, like, if someone's just not sure, they're just feeling like a no, or they're feeling like a yes, how can they then take that pause? Like, what could they really do to ask themselves, is this coming from intuition or ego?
Beautiful. Also, yes. For me, it was a big game of projection when I was younger. So I'm going to speak of myself again because we're all very different. And I used to project onto everybody I would meet. It was like, wow, like this person, this, that. And slowly I actually started realizing that everything that I was projecting was my own wounding. The minute that I actually got in touch with my own wounding, I was like, oh, actually my biggest gift is connecting people. You know, it's like, okay, so if my gift, that gift comes from a wound, and that fear of, I don't want to connect people because, you know, I'm afraid to be, fill in the blank, left out, not loved, whatever that is, you know. And so from that space, to understand that wound, it's like, let's look back at that projection. It's, and I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but it's really understanding again what our fears are, what makes us. So in a journal prompt, or in a prompt, I would ask myself, like, what are my fears? What am I actually afraid of? And what am I afraid of getting towards myself? And what am I afraid of doing to others? And just getting really clear of, you know, what is my pain, and what is that, and having a conversation with pain, having a conversation with fear, having a conversation with excitement, and actually really getting in touch with all these feelings, because often we will find that that projection is actually coming from us.
Mm-hmm.
And each person is going to have their own experience, and we might not like that person, and that very well could be. But if you're actually getting that feeling from just seeing the person, my guess is that that's a projection coming from you.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like really feeling that energy in the room, in which case could be a whole different, you know, array of things.
Yeah. So, do you think that human design really plays a big role in this? Because in human design, some people are, you know, sacral or splenic. They're supposed to go with their gut. Some people are more of the reflector type, that they're supposed to think about it after 28 days. So, do you think that we should all know our human designs first to kind of see how we interact with our intuition?
Absolutely. I feel like one of the first things I do in my sessions is to understand the person as a whole. Human design is one of the biggest, for me, most powerful tools there is. And I got a human design reading like a while ago. And to me, to understand myself in a way that I didn't even know things that I got, like I got this reading done. And this
What's your
person,
human design?
I'm a projector.
Okay. Yeah, me
I'm a,
too.
yeah, I'm a 4/6 projector.
Oh my God, me too.
You too.
Yeah,
Really?
that's great. Splenic authority.
Yes.
Me too. We're
But
the
actually,
exact same.
I am not a splenic authority,
Okay,
but we
okay.
balance each other out. I'm my first, my head, my chakra, like and then my third eye. It's the first three that
It's
I'm
like,
filled in.
okay, yeah, mine is splenic authority. And Steven, my husband, too, he's a splenic authority projector, but he's a 6-2 profile. So,
Wow.
so yeah, totally. So that makes sense. Do you know briefly about kind of the intuition of each human designs, if you could share?
It's not something I've gone into, but I do know that, for projectors, because I've studied just because of myself, like to understand a little bit, um, we are meant to, we reflect, we're not reflectors, but we do support people in looking at themselves, right? So
100%.
we're really not meant to work. If you're a projector out there and you're working, we're really here to play.
I'm doing the damn wrong. I need to embody that
but
part.
you're playing through working.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, I mean, I'm obviously we're all working, but we're here to bring joy to the world in some way, and we're really here to reflect, be a mirror to people's experiences. And that's what I know of reflectors. But I haven't really, sorry, projectors, but I haven't really studied human design as much.
Yeah, I mean, I know that projectors are supposed to, like go with that gut instinct. And then sometimes after, then they'll start overthinking it and coming up with like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe this, or maybe that. But it's like, go with that first thing. I know for reflectors, who are about 1% of the population, very, very rare. My brother is one. They're supposed to wait a full lunar cycle, so a full 28 days to make a decision on anything, because they flux so much with the moon's changes, because they're super, super sensitive. And actually, the way that society is going is there's going to become more and more reflectors over time. We're actually all moving towards non-energy types. So right now, we've kind of had to, in our survival world, like go with the first gut because you needed it for survival. But in this new world that we're paving, you're going to have more time to like feel through it. And then for manifestors, which are about 8% of the population, who are very like, come up with the idea, but also like the energy to go and do it. They're also like, have an idea, do it, and then kind of like disappear, like be on stage and then like drop dead, like, and then come back
Exactly.
at it again. So I think they should also go with that first instinct. And generators as well. I know generators, for making a decision, need to be shown options, right? It's not like, what do you want to eat for dinner? It's, do you want Indian or Thai food? Would you rather go here or there? When they have options, then they can feel into what it is that they want, and they can be very body based and visceral. And most of the population are generators. It's like 70% are either manifesting generators and generators. So most of our systems in our society, and I've been researching a lot with like food, and like a lot of the main diets that we see, keto, paleo, whole 30, it's actually for the generator body. So that's why
Absolutely.
it doesn't work. So the whole other conversation, but I do think that that human design piece in the conversation of intuition is so important, because it's, again, like you've been saying, we're all so different. So, Manuela's tools are going to be different than your tools, and even our tools change throughout the course of our lives as different, powers come online.
Absolutely. And you've just brought a huge piece of it in as well, which is diet. I mean, the less sugar that you can have, the less. I am not one to say cut off sugar from your diet or cut off any sort of, like that's not me. I believe in balance, but I do believe that the less amount of sugar you can have, the more you're creating space for your body to really become aware, in tune, and with your intuition, really.
Yeah,
Fully.
because it's all about sensitivity, right? So when you're having
Absolutely.
all this sugar, you're desensitized. So you need more sugar to feel that same satiation, because it's like man-made,
Yeah.
So that's why all of these things, and it's like, as you become intuitive, you don't want it as much. And then as you have less of it, you become more intuitive. Same with like alcohol. What about
Coffee.
that's what I'm still. Okay, here's my thing with coffee. So I never was a coffee drinker. I really started to drink it during quarantine, but I feel
Wow.
like when I have the coffee, I'm just like, yeah, a little like even happier. It's just like this feel good thing. And I'm not like, drinking, I'm drinking 1 cup of it a day, and I've gone do the celery juice, come back, done this, come back, and I don't notice anything like that's more off in my life. So what are your thoughts on this?
Again, balance. I used to drink 5 cups of coffee before quarantine,
Well, that's
that
maybe it's your Colombian ancestors coming
oh, it
through.
absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was still intuiting, and I was actually intuiting more than I was after, so I know people that are some of the biggest like connected beings in the middle of the Amazon that are so intuitive, and they're eating, fried food. And so it's for me, that doesn't really balance.
Mm-hmm.
And one cup of coffee is not going to do anything. You're still super in tune with all the other practices that you're doing. Though I do believe that there is a more clarity, there's more connection to the dream world. There's more, I can't eat too late at night or forget about dreaming, like I won't dream if I'm eating at 9 o'clock at night. If I stop at 5, or like if my last meal's at 6 or 7, I have the most lucid dreams. So yeah.
Yeah, it's also connected. So I want to talk about past lives and ancestors and spirit guides. So I think a lot of people get confused over, if I'm doing this meditation or automatic reading, or if I'm feeling something, is it coming from my intuition? Is it coming from my past life? Is it coming from my spirit guides? Is it coming from my ancestor? Is it coming from my archangel? Where is it coming from? So can you help us kind of decipher this if it's even possible?
Woo, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. Again, this is my motto. We're all different. So this is one way of thinking, and also accepting all sorts of views and points of views out there, because I'm a firm believer that if we actually open ourselves up to everybody's different points of views, we are going to have a book of knowledge, and that's how I learned, actually, is to be open to anything. I had really Catholic teachers, not considering myself Catholic, and I really had really Jewish teachers, and religion is a whole other thing, but so bringing religion a little bit in, not much, but these guides that we have been given growing up in some way. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I quickly found another way, found another avenue. But I was raised with Mary and Jesus, and these are energies that are out there. And I was taught that they were figures and embodied in human form and all of this. So with that, we're also, and it's beautiful that like the last few days have been the thinnest veil of the year, and this year in particular felt thinner than ever. Both of my parents have passed, and I had both of my parents like right next to me all the time. And I could tell because of different things that they were pointing out to, again, connected to the intuition. And so there's different layers of energy. There's a very physical, like metaphysical, you knock on a table and you feel something. And then there's layer after layer after layer after layer. Like for me, the world is made up of layers of energy. And so teachers and guides and all of this different energy is actually lives in some of those different layers. And the connection that you have is up to you. So you are basically guiding and steering the wheel on that connection to that guide or that spirit or that ancestor. I often work with people and taking them into meditation to find that connection to their ancestor, to find the connection to their, family lineage. And some of us are guided by family lineages, and some of us are guided by angels and archangels. And, but the name also puts so much weight into the energy, right? So I want to be clear that just because I name it and I say angel doesn't mean that it's an angel. I see it as like a winged energy. Like I see it and I feel it, and I even feel it right now. And I feel like we all have wings. I feel like we all have these beautiful wings, and sometimes I'm actually able to see it. And I know that some people out there are able to see color in wings. So I'm going on a huge road, but just to name that we all have our own way of connecting to this energy. And to me, the biggest thing is to actually close our eyes and really connect to that part of ourselves that feels that energy, And so for me, like death and spirits that have passed on just recently, is a very actually heavy energy. Like you can actually like put your hand under it and feel weight. Like there's a weight if you actually close your eyes and feel that around you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was once taught by one of my teachers that the planet is actually needing to like create doorways of light for this weight to just transcend, because we still have, if you go to nature, for example, and there's been a genocide near it, you feel the weight, like as empaths and intuitives, like when you enter land and you just feel like, whoa, I just suddenly feel so tired.
It's
It's
souls
because
that aren't able to pass through.
exactly, and you can feel that, and you're just like, sometimes you enter a room and I'm like, whoa, I'm so tired. And it's because you're feeling the weight of
Can
like,
you feel if someone has died in that house?
of course,
Mm-hmm.
of course. I mean, I've done immense like work with land. And actually, I believe we all have that responsibility too. My work is not so much with nature, even though I love nature, but my work is with spirits that have passed on, that haven't transcended. As a medium, and as you know, I talk to a lot of this is like my first time actually speaking this publicly, but I talk to spirits and I really allow them, and there's practices for you to help open the gateway and the doorway for them to just transcend. And some of us are really afraid of it, but really there's not much that they can do to you. And a lot of us
So
have that
if
gift.
someone passed away in a home and you're not aware of it, could that spirit be like quote unquote haunting you or tormenting you because it's trying to communicate with someone, or it's trying to leave? Maybe it's trying to get some help. And also, what if we feel like maybe some shit went down in our house that we don't know about? Or, that's why I didn't like growing up in Boston, because I could feel just like I even get emotional talking about this, but the homes were like part of the Underground Railroad. And you could see the full Underground Railroad there. And I just could feel like I was once there. So I hate, like for me, I hate living in a home knowing that like plantation homes, Victorian homes, because I know like slavery happened there. So what can we do if we're kind of feeling like maybe the place we live in has something, negative that has happened there?
Right. And were you close to Salem? Can I ask you that?
Yeah, I would go to Salem like every weekend.
Yeah. So that's like one of the biggest,
But that was like a huge healing for me because I was also,
we were
like died
probably
there too. Yeah.
burned, and yeah, I was there as well. I definitely went to do some
Burned,
healing.
drowned, all the things. She went down in Salem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say that you're called to those places to heal that, as you've just beautifully like mentioned and weaved, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I also do and teach how to clear your space, for definitely. Salt is is your best friend. Salt, like I would get the most unrefined salt there is.
Like a pink Himalayan sea salt.
Yes, that
Or
would be
just
great.
normal sea salt.
Both work,
Okay.
but unrefined, not the ones that like are completely refined and that you put in your food.
Salt lamps.
Because salt lamps are weaved in with electricity, and the biggest thing is like if you jump in the ocean, which I'm sure you're doing right now, it's like you feel cleared. So salt actually absorbs energy. Salt absorbs energy, lemon absorbs energy. So putting lemon in the corners of your house will actually support to absorb this like heaviness of energy.
In India, they use chili peppers.
Chili peppers as well, definitely.
Chili
And
peppers, lime, like hanging
garlic.
garlic. Yeah.
It's a traditional, like, yes, garlic and lime, because it just absorbs. These are potent tools that we have right next to us. It's not very expensive. And you just, even if you're moving into a place that you feel that's new and brand new, just putting a lime or that garlic like will absorb the energy. And there's a way to measure.
So for things like salt, like I remember we were talking about this, but you said that you have to always change the salt. Like you
Yes.
can't just be like you put the salt there once. How
No.
often, if we're trying to do a clearing, how often should we be changing the salt?
I mean, it depends how heavy you're feeling the energy, right? So to begin with, I would start every 3 days, you change that salt. Like if you're feeling a very heavy energy, if it's like, it feels okay, but like I want to get it clear, I would change every week, week and a half.
And that's the thing with salt lamps too. You're not changing a salt lamp.
No, and
You're
it's
just holding on
absorbing.
to it forever. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the thing with crystals as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is your favorite way to energetically cleanse crystals?
I just recently did a class and I was explaining, like, for me, some people charge them with the moon. Some people charge them with the sun. I'm a sun being, so I like to like wash them in salt water. I just put them in salt water. Some of them can't be there for too long, but some of them I leave overnight. And then I love putting them out in the sun so that they charge. Not too long because the color washes off, but definitely long enough so that they get a bit of that solar like energy.
Does it need, like, if there is a window in between it, will that block the moonlight or sunlight from helping?
I prefer to do it like direct sunlight because it's only just like, I would leave them maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Otherwise, the actual potency of the crystal starts fading.
And should this be for all of our crystals? Like certain types of crystals need to be cleansed more?
Certain. So selenite is self-cleansing usually. That's my favorite because selenite actually supports in cleansing other crystals too. So if you have crystals around selenite, it will absorb that energy. And yeah, each crystal is different. Some they can't really go in water. I wouldn't put rubies, for example, in water at all.
What about like tourmaline and these like really like black, heavy shungite, etc.?
Yeah, so those I would go actually in smudge more than I would put underwater.
Oh, okay.
Right. So first off, like, certain smudging would be, for example, something that's coming to me right now, sweetgrass for some reason. Sweetgrass for tourmaline is really potent because it actually pairs really beautifully. Yeah, that's what's coming to me right now. But sage as well, and really respecting where it comes from and the Native American traditions of sage, trying not to appropriate the sage, but really allowing, and connecting to it as well.
And
as this
sage is super
crystal.
easy to grow at home too. So people
Right.
could grow their own wild sage that's like local to them.
Exactly. And you're putting your energy and your love in there, and you can even put crystals around it too. It loves, yeah.
So I think a lot of people like they're confused, should I even be connecting with my ancestors if my ancestors maybe like weren't the highest vibe people, like a lot of our ancestors did really corrupt things. And I think also the fear of like, I don't know, what if an ancestor shows up and it's like not one I want to connect with? So how do we go about connecting with the right ancestors?
That's beautiful. And then also part of me tells me like you're part of that lineage as well, right? So there's part of you that actually has to forgive and be forgiven by that because there's a reason why you were born into that lineage. And ignoring it is not going to help you. It's actually going to suppress it, which then becomes a dis-ease in your body, in your physical sphere, in your energy, in your aura, in your presence.
So you should just be open to connect to any ancestor, because I, for example, heard from one of my teachers, Malika, to only connect with the ancestor that has my highest light in mind. To try to like, she said that you could have some like really angry ancestors that just want to like come through and wreak havoc. But then I think that can scare people, of like, oh my gosh, what if I call in the wrong energy?
Right. And I absolutely agree. And I'm also saying, like, totally, if you're working for the light, it is in your highest interest to only connect to beings of light. Like, do not connect to the ancestors that you're mad at. But I am going to say, do not just push them away, because that's part of your work also as a human being, is to like really acknowledge light and dark and forgive and do the work. Because if you're just running away from that, there's if when you feel strong enough to do it, I'm not saying go ahead and go and run and heal the ancestral lineage. Constellation work is fantastic for that if you need to actually like heal something with somebody. Now if you're in like connecting to your intuition, I wouldn't personally even really fully connect to my ancestors. If I'm connecting to my intuition, I would really choose actually more to connect to my guides and my like master teachers out in the field, like in the,
Ancestors are more for healing versus necessarily getting your guidance from.
yeah, and they actually don't ever like leave you, but I never actually call on my ancestors. If I'm doing a healing on somebody else, like if I'm facilitating somebody else's healing, I don't ever call my ancestors. They're there and I know and I can feel them, but they're not the ones that are doing the work with me. Who's doing the work with me and helping, supporting, like opening the channel is more like guides, and that's where I call in that angel protector energy as well.
So I want to talk about this concept of who's with you, because I hear people saying, on my right, I have the spirit guide, her name's Ruby. And then on my left, I have this one, and 3 down, there's Crystal. And I'm like, I don't know who's next to me. How do we know?
Beautiful. Well, we guide you through a meditation to connect to that because they're there with you. I mean, when I first met you, I was like chills everywhere. You are connected by this like energy
like
beyond
a squad, like a dance troupe all around me.
Totally.
They're all like crumping.
Yeah, and you can dress them. No, you can name them. The beautiful thing is like through the meditation, they even give you a name, right? It's like really attuning and clearing your space and just like really trying to hear whatever that voice is that's around you. I mean, sometimes we feel heat, right? There's a lot of heat right now around me, a lot, and it's not even that hot outside. So that to me is energy, right? There's energy around me right now. Mm-hmm.
So how could we go about trying to understand who are our most, present day guides?
Right. Who are you connected to?
Like for my guides?
Yeah. Or who do you
I feel like I'm calling upon goddesses, Saraswati, Lakshmi, etc. But in terms of like, I don't think I see, I don't see them in front of me. It's just more of like, yeah.
And that's part of your design, right? So that's you. You're not a clairvoyant. You're not like and you are, because I say that we're all everything, right? You're everything. Right. But I
see more just like colors, but I don't see like a perfect person in front of me. I feel like mine is clairsentient, of just knowing, like I just know information and I don't know where I know it from, but I don't have this like seeing a crew of people around me in the room. That's just not my gift.
And that's not. And that's beautiful, because that's what we need to, for me, I'm a clairsentient as well. I feel everything. That's like, and I see your aura right now as we're speaking, like I see it, but I don't necessarily. Movies, I've developed a little bit of everything, but again, that is what it is, owning your intuition.
So should we try to go about, getting the other types as well, like trying to become more clairvoyant, clairaudient, etc.? Or do you think just really focus on which one that comes naturally for you? I think mine is actually claircognizant. It's the knowing one. Clairsentient is the body feeling. I have some of that too, but it's the claircognizant that's my strongest. Yeah.
Yes, I feel that for you. I was like, yeah, but you do have clairsentient as well. I think, it's like the doshas. It's like one is more dominant than the other, but you still have all of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So is there like a practice or meditation you recommend for understanding who are your main guides?
Mm-hmm. So as as a knower, it's not about trying to figure out, I want to see them or I want to feel them. Like you might feel them, but you're knowing them, and then that's why I asked you, it's like, who are you connected to? Because you know that you're connected to, and you can call them upon when you feel them. Right?
But I want to see what they're wearing though.
Well, you can dress them. You can dress them. And the beautiful thing is bring in creativity. Open your channel, let yourself go, grab some pencils and start drawing and let it come through you, because that's your channel.
So I did this automatic writing, and I was, writing with my right hand, the question, my left hand, I was channeling a spirit guide that I was trying to connect to. And then I'm like, what is your name? And I could feel like nothing was coming through. And then I was like trying to just like, okay, give me each letter one by one. And I could feel I was just making it up. Like I knew I was making it up, and I gave him the name Prabhav, and that just definitely was not his name. So like nickname. Prabhav. Yeah. So what can we do if we're kind of feeling like we're doing this practice and we're just sort of making it up?
You're forcing that.
Yeah.
Right. You're not. So I even saw it in your body, like how you contracted. You were actually literally, I want its name and it's not coming to me. Like, how do I get it? It's like, my body is completely closed. Deep breaths, open your shoulders up and like be willing to receive. And it's all going to come in like in time. It's
To me, I'm like, do that. Why would they even have a name? If they're an eternal soul, why would they have a name?
exactly. And we
Like, I
name
feel like
things just
sometimes
for
we name things for
we
ourselves. So I feel like I wasn't getting the name because I knew, why would a spirit have a name?
completely. That's it. That's it. We name things. We need to have that shape. We need to see what they're wearing, but they're
Well,
eternal.
that's the
Yeah.
thing too. I wonder, is this just like this humanistic thing that we do, or is it people picking up on different energies? Because I hear people say, oh, I have a spirit guide who's like a 54-year-old like archaeologist and his name's Todd, and like these very like human things about their spirit guides. So I'm wondering, are they just tapping into a different stream of consciousness that I'm not aware of? Or is it just too hard for us to connect to energy that we need to personify things to be able to connect to them? Just like the goddesses are universal energies personified.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. I feel, and I also would say that everybody's connected to it. We're all different. We're all differently connected to a different channel. And we are all part of this one, source. We're here on earth, but I do feel like some of my teachers are connected to completely different channels than I have no idea about. I
Right.
can't feel, I don't sense, I don't really necessarily believe in them
Mm-hmm.
because everything that I believe, I've actually experienced.
Mm-hmm.
That's my biggest teaching, is experience and opening
Mm.
myself up to experience.
Mm.
So for them, I respect their channel, I respect what they're getting. And you're absolutely right. They're personifying an energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, I never really, I'm not an alien person. I
Right.
don't really, so that's not to, I haven't seen it. I don't feel it. Like, I can't personify it. And so
I don't want to meet them. I'm like, because I have like the negative RH negative blood type, and apparently that's like alien blood. Do you know what
ah,
it is? And I'm like, don't come for me, y'all. Stay away. I don't want to see you. Do not make yourself known. There are a lot of people who want disclosure. It ain't me. Whereas like Stephen is like, he's like, if they could take me away on their ship tonight, goodbye. I would
goodbye.
and he's literally an alien. And some of my friends are very galactic and cosmic, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a human. Like, I'm
Human.
here to
I'm a
protect Earth.
human.
I'm here to like dance and
Yes.
sweat and the dirt and like that. So
Absolutely.
do you think that is different guides of theirs that are calling out? It's different past lives, just different dharmas. Like, what do you think is like making some people really resonate with the galactic, some people really with the human, some people really with the marine? Like, where is that coming from?
Right. And I don't really necessarily feel like I fully have an answer for that, because I still feel like that's part of why we're here, is to kind of understand it. But from my perception and my point of view, yeah, I think you're like, there are people that are so connected to that alien world. And I'm like, wait, I don't get it. Like, I don't see it. I'm such,
I'm like, there's no waterfall up there. There's no food. Like, they don't dance. Like, why would I? But some people feel like that's my home. Like, I want to
right.
go home. They're homesick for this place.
Right. And I'm not judging it at all. And I think I find it beautiful. And I love that we're having this human experience in this planet. Like, and we get to meet and build bridges around it together. Like, I want to learn about your home. I'll teach you about my home. I know I've been a medicine woman. I've also been a soldier. I've killed, I know, but I've done a few different lifetimes of this. And I'm so connected to earth. Like, that's the trees and the flowers. That's me. So, and then there's the marine ones, the people that are connected to the dolphins,
I have
and
a
the
lot of
whales.
that.
That's
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So what about, I'm just starting to learn about this. And again, I learned from experience. So it's just because I've met the right teachers. But like Lemuria and, all of that is dolphin land. It's water. It's Hawaii. It's the islands. It's New Zealand. It's Australia. And it's this energy that we are so connected to because we've been there before, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's why, learning about different astrological types too, like my Western astrology type is Capricorn. I have like 7 planets in Capricorn and Western, but that's why I never really believed in astrology, because I never resonated with it. And then I learned about Vedic astrology, which is the most ancient form of astrology, and like really looks at where the planets are in the sky right now based off of the Earth's shift in its axis. And that's not to say Western astrology is not accurate. It has its own more micro view of like our seasons, whereas Vedic astrology is more galactic and cosmic and big picture. So you get kind of different information. What I find is that my Western chart reflects who I am in this Western society. And my Vedic chart is much more of like the truth of who I am. Like in my Vedic chart, my Scorpio is my rising, which makes sense, water. And then I'm a Sag, sun and moon. Are you the same thing? Are we just the same person? But that to me makes so much sense because I've always been like an adventurer, a traveler. I want to do new things, spontaneous. Like, let's just see where it goes. I'm not like, I don't even know what I'm going to do next week, like, you know, let alone Q4. I've never been that person. I don't do calendars, you know, and I'm like, why aren't I like that? But I feel like in the Western world, I have to learn to be like that. And that's why it's in my Western chart. So have you seen this too with people's like Western Vedic sidereal versus tropical astrology?
Completely. Absolutely. And I'm a big, I'm a big, what I love about this conversation is that we're bringing in so many different pieces, and I believe like you have, like I started so early learning about this, my first teacher came when I was 6 years old, 7, so it's been years of different like astrology and human design and just like learning ourselves. We're layers and layers of information. It just never
Gene
stops.
keys, numerology.
Exactly. Deities, Ayurveda, Western, Eastern, like
Yeah.
it's just fascinating. I mean,
And we all learn just more and more about ourselves, you know, and it's like,
exactly.
I think some people's like dharma in this lifetime is to really take one practice. Like I'm a Buddhist. That is what I'm here to do. And like other people are here to be like the eclectic witch. That's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I resonate with that. And that's why I love learning about it. But I think then it confuses people at the same time because they're like, has my whole life been a lie if I'm not my Western chart? Like that's what my tattoo's about, you know? And it's hard.
Well, you're both. I love that what you said, that it's like our physical body shows like you're seeing me as something, and then like if you look at my soul, you're seeing me as something else, right? And then I make up this person, this body. So it's like the layers, again, we know we're talking about energetic layers and physical layers, and it's all energy. It's all, and different people are looking at different ways of bringing this forth in various informations and books and knowledge, and ultimately it just comes back to us, and it's like, what do you believe in? What is your belief? What is your connection to spirit or your ancestor or your guide or your being?
And that's the other thing. It's like your beliefs do shape your reality. That like, let's say, you know, all my friends, family, people who grew up with like Vedic astrology, that they don't even know about Western astrology. That's just who they are. Like they've grown up with that. Whereas people in Western have never even heard about Vedic astrology, maybe until this moment in time. So if you're always told that you're something, oh, you're super, super studious because of your chart, or you're super creative or emotional or whatever it is, then you become that thing because it's told to you over and over again. So it's like our stories, including our astrological signs, are then perpetuating that side of ourselves.
Right. I often ask myself what comes first, reading the horoscope or the actual fact of the horoscope? It's like, what is actually going to come from? That's why I don't fully believe in the word psychic. It's like, there's no such, for me personally, there's no such thing as really fully telling the future, because it's like so many of my psychic teachers have told me things, and often I wonder, it's like, okay, well, they told me something, is that what I'm going to live up to, or can I shift it? Like that's amazing that I can shift it, because you usually can, right? So it's like our belief is everything.
Yeah, I think, you know, just the word psychic feels a bit old paradigm to me because it makes it seem like there's someone out there that knows the answer and you have no control. And I think also a lot of people have like kind of commodified this word of being a psychic. We've all been approached by like strangers on the street, like, you have a curse on you, pay me this money to remove it. Like, I know I have definitely fallen for it. And then I'm like,
we've probably done it before.
Another spell I have to pay to get removed. And another, okay, you want me to put what in my bra and then throw something under my left shoulder? And it's like all of these things, you know, and you're like, wait, I want to, and that's the thing with me too. It's like, I'm like like I'm super interested in all the things, and I feel like it can be a slippery slope of giving up your power to like the crystals or the salt or the something to like do the healing. Oh my God, I need to sage, I need to this, I need to that. And it's like, I for me, maybe it's the Western Capricorn, but like I see these as like beautiful tools, but not like Bible to live by, because then it just becomes another doctrine, another dogma.
Completely. Absolutely. And it's all in you. It's like, what is the power that you're giving that crystal?
Exactly.
You know, what is that power that you're giving those cards? What is your intention? What's your energy? We come back to energy. I feel this whole heat around me. What am I doing with that? Right? Like, how can I? Yeah. I love that.
So I want to talk a little bit about past lives. It's something I love to talk about on the podcast. We've done a couple episodes, you know, about quantum hypnosis healing technique and just my own past life experiences, et cetera. And for me, honestly, the way I have tapped into my past lives most has been through my, maybe it's because of the claircognizant, but this feeling of I resonate with this time period, or I have this archetype inside of me, or something is drawing me to this culture or language or persona. What has your past life remembrance experience been like?
To tell you a story, because I didn't believe in this. I was like, oh, right. Like, really?
Because it totally goes against, you know, Christianity. There's no past life in that.
Yeah. And I was, you know, conditioned to think like, no, none of that. I was like, no, this doesn't work this way. I was 13. I was in Mexico. I had just met one of my teachers, and it was 90 degrees outside. It was so hot. And I laid down on her table, and suddenly the whole room just goes under -15. You know, it's like -15. And I'm like freezing, shivering. I'm like, what's going on? And then suddenly I start getting flashbacks of like this freezing cold mountain in Russia. I was like, oh my gosh. I was terrified of the cold then. Like, I would escape to whatever tropical paradise I could escape to because I couldn't deal with snow. And through that, I realized like, whoa, I was in Russia and I actually froze to death. And then the minute that she took me through that, it was like, whoa, okay, I actually was able to go into the snow and like play with it and love it. But in that moment, like, that image to me came as an image, and it was able to heal it.
What came through for me when you just said that was that you were a Siberian shaman. Was that in that life?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just pick up on that.
There we go. Look at her intuition.
And I saw you had like this like white furry hood around your face.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm gonna show you my journal.
And your lips went blue.
Yeah. I froze to death, and I actually left a baby. 3 years later, I left a baby in that lifetime. 3 years later, I'm on a train to New Mexico in Albuquerque. And this guy is like sitting right in front of me and looks at me straight in the eyes. And we're like connected right away. And I was like, whoa, this is like out of a movie. He looks at me and he's like, we connected. And then he comes and visits me in Mexico a year later. He goes into my teacher's bed, same place. And turns out that he didn't believe in any of this stuff at all either. Closes his eyes, we're all crying. He's my baby in that past life, which in this lifetime he's Russian. So he's Russian in this life, and then in that lifetime he was my baby, and he came here. We came together to heal that, and my teacher was my mom in that life. So I go from not believing any of this to experiencing that, to just like going deep into learning it, and just like wow, like this exists. This actually exists. We come here to this body, and some of this might be way out there for some people, and then it's also just about experiencing. And that healed my fear of cold, and also I healed my relationship with somebody I left behind. We don't talk anymore, but he came into my life to heal that, you know, and that was that. So it's all about experience and learning and feeling and being like inquisitive, like asking questions. And like, if I'm afraid of heights, what happened to me? I had a huge fear of heights as well, you know, and it was all around me killing myself. I healed that too. It's so fascinating. It's just like, you know, all these fears are not just fears that we're born with just because. Like, it's asking questions. Why am I actually afraid of you know, the dark? What is that about? So yeah,
I love that.
To a short,
Yeah, no, I think that almost everyone we meet, we had some sort of past life with. It could be as small as, maybe you were both like soldiers in the same army, or like maybe that was your like long lost lover, but in this lifetime, you're definitely not lovers, And I think that also, um, family members tend to play different roles in different lifetimes, and you kind of travel together in a soul clan. So that same group of, I don't know, let's say it's 50 or so souls, though there's no number on it, will play different roles. That maybe in this life I'm the mother and you're the father and they're the baby, and then we switch it, and then now we're sisters and that's the grandpa, and like, playing out the karma by being these different roles to each other. So for example, let's say I was your mother and you were my daughter, and I was like a cruel mother to you. Well, then maybe in the next lifetime we switch so I can experience that. Then maybe we become sisters, and then maybe we become a dad and father, and like keep on playing these different roles until we're able to see all parts of the lesson and bring about healing.
Absolutely. And remember when we had like families of like 100, right? We've minimized that to 4 people, but we used to be whole community of families, and the Eskimos.
I mean, we're all related.
Yeah.
Like we all actually, every single person on this planet is related. I think we forget that. And it's like not even that far. Like if you think about, I don't know what was the average amount of children 100 years ago, but I know my grandparents, 8, 10 children, that was normal,
Yeah.
So it's like, think maybe it was some families, 20 kids, one person
Right.
would have. So it's like,
Right.
just think about that. And that all came from one person, that one lineage. So there's like, it's actually pretty interesting with like presidents of like, they're all related. Have you heard this? Like even like Obama was like related to, I don't want to butcher it. I don't know who, but he was related to like some like JFK or something, I want to say. Like they're all related. And there's probably some weird Illuminati thing happening with that as well. But it just also shows how we're all interconnected.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, don't even get me started on, absolutely. I'll keep it at that.
Yeah.
But yes.
So I've read a lot of books on past lives, and sort of like what I hear is if you have a fear from a past life, if you become aware of that fear now, like it will go away. But I haven't found that to be true. So I'm super afraid of blood. I hate blood. Since I was a kid, I would literally run away when it was time to do a blood test. Like I would like get in the elevator and press all the buttons and escape. And like to this day, like blood tests for me, I get so queasy. I feel like I'm going to faint. It's like such a big deal. I don't know how I'm ever going to have kids because you have to do so many blood tests all the time. Like even if just thinking about, like particularly for me, it's veins. Thinking about veins,
Wow.
I get dizzy,
Right.
So I know that I've definitely bled out, been stabbed, something related to that in past lives, but even knowing about it, I'm still not healed from it. So what could we do if it's still continuing?
Well, I would definitely suggest a regression. Have you done a regression with that yet?
I've done regressions, but that hasn't
Not
come
with
through.
that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And that one's a big one because it stops you from, so what comes to me is to do a regression and go back to the source of that fear, like to go back to that moment that you feel like. I think that's something that you can even do to yourself. It's like, can you close your eyes and like perhaps take that? Have you tried that either? Like, have you tried to go back to that source of where that moment is coming from?
I feel like I haven't like fully sat in a journey of it, but I feel like, yeah, I can name a million things that probably could have happened to me. Like,
right.
I'm sure so many, people were beheaded or stabbed or this or that related to blood. So surely that's happened to me too. But yeah, no part of me wants to like, go and sit in, I don't know, a ceremony of it and then really be in it. It's just
Well, that's that
too
fear
much.
too.
Yeah.
So I would, the one thing that stuck to me of everything that you said was the vein part.
Yeah.
There's something with the veins, right?
Like
so
even you saying the word, I get, yeah,
easy.
even if you say vein, like oh my God, I don't even want to talk about this subject.
We can't talk about it right now.
But it's something with me and veins.
Yeah. So I would actually get curious and ask questions around that part. And I know that you get, I know. That, because that to me is what comes, and that's not killing and stabbing or anything. That's something that happened to you. And I can even tell you what it is. And I'm sure we can talk after as well.
It's like a mutilation, torture type of thing that happened to me.
Because the minute it actually has to do with an injection. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So the minute
Injection, though, I definitely don't want any vaccine in me, but it's more like, I don't even want to ruin this podcast of going into all of this, but yeah, it's more just this like weird fear with veins. But I'm sure a lot of people listening, I think like there's a word for this. It's like a very common phobia.
Yeah. Well, and that to me is going back to the source, and we can talk about it after, but like going back to the source and really actually clearing it and becoming aware of it. And then from that moment, like really just sitting in ceremony, but in a very like you and it ceremony, just like you're not going to harm me anymore. Forgiveness. I forgive for whoever did this to me, and I, let it go. And then actually what's beautiful is actually facing that again. And that actually just putting like whatever it is, like even if you have a little cut, it's like sit with it. What are you afraid of? It's nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Facing it. For me, like jumping after, my fear of jumping out of a plane, bungee jumping, all of that has healed, and like trusting that nothing's going to happen. You are completely guided, supported, and loved. Nothing in this blood is going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest fear, like the number one fear, is fear of public speaking. That's like the greatest fear. And it's probably like, people went up there and said something and were mocked, like back in the day, if you were mocked or, turned out of your community, you would die. You needed that community. So I think it's this fear of saying the wrong thing in my community, cutting me out and me not surviving because of that. Fear of heights, like you mentioned, fear of airplanes. For me, fear of driving has come up. Fear of losing, because it's like that fear of losing control. What if I faint while driving and I lose control of the car? So yeah, definitely. I think all of them have some sort of past life in it.
I can't tell you enough how many people I've worked with that fear of speaking. I mean, I feel like if all of us were speaking our truth, my God, we'd be in a whole different world.
Yep.
I wish that is the highest vision I have for the world, is if we all could speak our truth and what we actually feel. The amount of people that I've worked with that have been strangled before, unbelievable. Like people actually have felt like the cord and the strangling of it, and like releasing that trauma, letting it go. Now those people are standing up and speaking up. And that's, to me, my biggest joy is like, go stand up for yourself and for what you have to say, because there's so much in this planet. That's being
Yeah, I think I definitely was hung because I hate like ropes with knots in them. Like we were looking at different like lanterns, pendants and stuff. And it's like the style right now to have like a rope with a knot on it with a light. And I'm like, that looks like a noose. Like, why would someone want that in their house? Like, I was like so against it. Steven's like, no, it's like cool. It's like BDSM style. I'm like, no.
I just got like ringing in my ears, like, like something say like, woo.
Yeah. But even as a kid, I think as kids, we are so much more in tune. But as a kid, I was obsessed with studying the topic of lynching. Like I would do, whole presentations on how lynching is such a disgusting, part of American history, and, still is happening, unfortunately. So I think that has to do with something in a past life of mine.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. To me, it's one of the topics that I'm most fascinated by.
Yeah.
I think that's really what we come here to do, and in relationship, in community, in ourselves, to really like face those fears. And like, that's where the growth comes. That's where we can really like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of other people judging you? Or are you judging other people? Like, let's, it's that back to that projection. And then where does that come from? And what moment in time? Is it this lifetime? Is it a past lifetime? Is it your mom's lifetime? Or is it your dad's lifetime? So it's like really a map of creating a map of how to actually navigate what you're carrying.
So I hear a lot of people say, and granted, I hang out in very, very spiritual groups of people, but a lot of people are like, this is my last lifetime here. I know it's my last lifetime. And part of me is like, it could be, but part of me thinks, well, is that a really egotistical thing to say, to think that you've solved every problem ever, and this lifetime is just the final little thing? It's like, are we really ever on that last lifetime? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm often saying that just because, not because I'm egotistical, but because I'm tired. I'm just like, okay, how many more of these do we have? Like, I'm done. I'm often saying that. And I have been told that by people that read my hand, like all these people. But I also know many, many, many people that have decided to come back. Actually, one of my roommates who lives with me, I know that she's decided to come back, and she was done and she chose to come back. So I don't necessarily believe that like we're done.
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if we're asked to come back for some reason, I think like our spirit, who knows what's on the other side of that. I think that's part of my next iteration of this lifetime for me, is to like study what goes after that.
Right, exactly. We went to this amazing healer in Bali. He only spoke Balinese, but he told me that I was Parvati, goddess Parvati's
Mhm.
angel.
Mm.
Like I
Ooh,
was, I
chills.
was her angel guide. So I decided to come back as a human, but in his view, I haven't been a human before. This is my first time of being a human, which, that's why I don't take what one person says, because I do feel like I was a human, because I do feel those past life memories, but maybe like my most recent one was it was being the angel. It's really interesting how each person will pick up on different aspects of you. And I have had actually different healers say like, yeah, like, I think we have this very linear concept of like, you start off as like this very, very infant soul and you keep growing and then you're an old soul and it's done. And it's not really like that, because you could be an angel, come back, like experience something really traumatic, but you needed that for like this. So it's not really this perfect idea of like your life just keeps getting easier the more and more that you grow, until
Mm-mm.
you just have the best life ever and manifest everything you want. Like I think
Mm-mm.
like I don't know this, but I'm going to assume that some of the people who are really here to make the biggest impact on humankind have had the most difficult lives.
Absolutely. Oh my, it's chills all over. You're completely right. And my whole philosophy on this, again, hours worth of philosophy on this, because this is another, like, I'm passionate about the subject as well. Some of my biggest teachers have been people that live in the streets, actually, and I talk to them, and I like, to me, they hold something really sacred, and they teach me every single day the unattachment, and yeah, whew, that's a big one. And I fully agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, for example, in the Michael teachings, it's the sort of like linear way of like the soul dies and it's 7 stages and these are the things. And it was helpful for me, definitely. But, one interesting part about it was the oldest, according to them, the oldest soul often is homeless,
Mm-hmm.
or, you complete not attached to this world at all, because they've already done it so much. And it's actually the younger in respective to that souls that are still like in society and creating things, etc., because then you
Mm-hmm.
reach this point that it's just much more energetic. and
Absolutely.
and I think where we get stuck as humans is we think, oh, then it's better for me to be energetic, or it's better for
Mm-hmm.
me to be like the aesthetic that drops everything and like meditates in the Himalayas, because older must be better than younger. And that's just not true. That's why this chronological age thing isn't really the best way of explaining it, because it's just different soul contracts in this lifetime. And some people like a Marianne Williamson, would we say, oh, she's a younger soul than me, so she's in politics? Like, no, she has such a huge dharma to
Mm-mm.
play in doing that. And that's the avenue that she's called into. Whereas someone who we don't even know their name because they have never seen a computer before, maybe they're the one who's actually on their last lifetime. Who knows?
I often say that. And yeah, who knows? Who knows? I agree with you. I don't think there's such a thing as linear path. And to me, somebody once told me, I'm trying to really think of who told me, I don't remember, but if the Buddha is enlightened, then why is he still meditating?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a famous quote, but I remember reading that. I'm like, yeah, like, what is this? It's like, there is no such thing. We know we continue on, and maybe we come back, and maybe we're not done. And talk about karma, if this is your last life, if you, who knows? There's also a huge question around karma, but yes, it's
Yeah, I
fascinating.
mean, this topic of karma too, like this is a whole conversation. I don't even know how long we've been talking for, but one thing that I do want to say about karma is I think that this term is even where we can use it to weaponize. We can use
Mm-hmm.
it to, oh, well, have a good karma, so that's why my life is like
Mm-mm.
this. And they must have done something bad in their past life, and that's why they're homeless, or that's why they're experiencing this or that. And what we forget is that if you're here, you have something to learn. You
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be here if you had nothing to learn, and you have a responsibility. And it's like that free will is really where you exercise your spirituality. It's not about, like, I think that, for example, in places like India where the disparity is so great. You're in your car and there's just kids banging on your windows because they're hungry, right? Like, it's hard for people to make sense of, why was I born so privileged in this car when that child who maybe has the same hopes, dreams, and ambitions as me is banging on my window hoping to get food for today. So we can use these spiritual concepts like karma to say, oh, well, I must have been better in my
Yeah.
past life, so I deserve this and they deserve that. So, good luck. Hopefully in the next lifetime you like have a house. Like, I think that that's actually the Buddha's criticism of, that's why he actually left, Hinduism and created Buddhism, was that we all do have a responsibility. But I also don't see it in the way of Buddhism, which is very like merit, like, oh, you do good, so it comes back to you. Like, that also feels very transactional to me.
Completely.
So yeah, I'd love your perspective on all
I
this.
agree. I mean, I think I don't necessarily see karma as that. I don't ever look, and it's a question. I love that you bring it up because it's a question that I'm often asking every teaching that I'm in or every teacher that I'm with. It's like, I feel such ache for the world, and how do I show up in the best way that I can? How do I help my everybody? How I just want to help everyone. How do I do it? Like, there's so much like room for me to go and also, but to me, karma is not, oh, I did it better than you in the last lifetime, so here I am, like, just showing off my car. No. It's that transactional piece doesn't feel
Right.
like
I'm going
correct
to help
to
you
me
so
at
I get
all.
points, so more things come for me, or it will help me like manifest.
No.
But I would
Yeah.
say that that is better than not helping.
Correct.
If the only reason why you're helping is to help yourself, it's better than not helping.
Yeah.
But you should just want to do it for the sake of doing it without it being an exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that goes hand in hand with like your last lifetime or not last lifetime. Ultimately we just don't, and we go by like what we feel, what we see, what we perceive. But ultimately this is what this journey is all about, right? Like, just what is it really, and I love hearing everybody's perspectives on it and journeys and what they feel and what they see. And I don't think there's actually a right way of doing things. Like, there's so many ways.
And I think different approaches, different teachers will suit you at different points of your life. And then that will like not be fulfilling. You will move past it. Like, Abraham Hicks, it's very focus on feeling good. If you focus on feeling good, you'll get what you want. Yes. So I would say that for where the average, person is in America, let's just say, I don't know universally, if they can just focus on feeling good, then they will probably step away from things that are self-harming, right? So that's putting them on a right track. But then you get past that and you realize it's not just about me feeling good so I can get what I want. There's a bit of an emptiness in that, and then we move past that and we understand what law of attraction really is about. And it's not just about like manifest abundance and like these like key buzzy words. It's about like what does manifestation even mean? It's to create an idea into reality. I think what I see happen sometimes with, and you're also spiritual and an activist like myself, but what I see happen is people can lose their sense of activism when they become spiritual because they have this sense of, well, if I figured it out, you can figure it out too. And I'm not here to hold your hand. So I'm going to, send you love and light and hope you figure it out. Like, I'm even seeing, with this election that just happened, like, yeah, who the president is not going to be the defining factor and change in your life. Like, you ultimately have control over your decisions, et cetera. But there are fundamental human rights, such as reproductive rights, such as gay people being allowed to adopt and get married and have legal protections, such as immigrants entering this country, that even if it's not your problem right now, it's still someone's problem. And what I see is like a lot of times spiritual people are like, oh, I don't care because I'm over here in like Maui living my best life and I don't have to worry about that. So it's interesting because becoming more spiritual in a way should make you care more, but what I'm seeing more, it actually makes people care less. So what are your thoughts on this?
again, my whole layer philosophy, right? So different layers of spirituality. And I so appreciate those people that have reached the level where it's like all divine unicorns and rainbows and magic and fluff. That's a level of spirituality that I don't necessarily fully connect to, because I think like feet on the ground, feet on the earth, like we are here as like we are here to help each other elevate. My another philosophy of mine is like either we're all in it or none of us are in it. You know, like my neighbor is just as important. The person who's cleaning the toilet is just as important in the airport. Like I tend to look at the person in the eyes and say, hey, like I'm with you. You know, and so where is this taking me? Yes. Yeah. I feel, wait, if where, where am I going? Where am I going
Talking
with this?
about how spiritual people can oftentimes say, well, I figured it out, so why
Right.
can't you
Thank
figure
you.
out, and not really care about like human rights
Thank you.
issues, politics, etc.
I think spirituality goes hand in hand with activism. I think, you know, I think one of my teachers, whose name is Melissa Michaels, she taught me, you know, like activism, like creativity, it's activism, creativity, healing, and education. They're all one. You know, you play the role of the activist and the healer and the creative and the educator all as one. You are, you know, you are marrying those. And so I don't necessarily see the healer as separate from the activist, or the activist as separate from the educator, or the educator as separate from the artist. Like, you know, all of these are similar and they go hand in hand. And we actually do this program in the summers and we dance it out. We actually move through each one. And the healer cannot be a healer without the activism, because, you know, and the activist cannot be a healer without the artist. Like it just, we are all one, like literally all one of all of it. We have to marry the activism.
Yeah.
And then again, you know, I appreciate people that really feel like there's an elevation so high that we don't have to look at that negative piece of it. Because without, like, if we're looking at it as a perfect world, well, that's great. And yet I know that, you know, in Colombia right now, there's millions of people dying of hunger. So I am looking at it as a perfect world. And I am looking at ways that I can use my platform to also elevate and support my, you know, my fellow Colombians who are dying of hunger, and like how to bridge that which is here and there. Right. And so I'm not judging people for having this perfect life and living in Maui and, you know, Mexico, and like kumbaya, everything's perfect. That's beautiful that they choose to have that lifestyle. And also, that is not my personal belief. I do feel that I'm here to elevate and activate. And that probably goes back to our 4 6s, because we're humanitarians. As much as we are spiritual and connected to that, like that goes back to human design. We come here to help elevate humanity in some regard.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, like for me, that's what I had the struggled with. And that's why I left Bali. I was like, I feel like here it's just a bunch of mental masturbation. It's just like, I'm going to do my ecstatic dance and drink my green juice and then like go in a cuddle puddle and then sing a kirtan and then this and that and that. And then it's like, it just never ends. Like they've just been doing that for like 10 years. And it's like, wait, this is supposed to fuel you up so you can be of service to humanity and like bring that to the places where it is not. Like it's amazing. I love doing all those things too. But if it's all you do, then it actually even like loses its essence if your whole day and your whole life. But their perspective was, oh, you have this like sense of, you know, responsibility, and that's just an illusion in your mind. You're only responsible for yourself. Everyone could get to Bali or wherever they needed to if they wanted to and create their own reality. So I have chosen to create this. They can create it for themselves. And I see that perspective too of like, you know, how much one can. And sometimes like I know in a past life of mine, I was at the fall of Lemuria and I knew that it was sinking. And I was like, telling this other girl, we need to help the people, we need to help the people, we need to let them know, we need to save them. And she was like, we can't save them, I'm leaving to Atlantis. And I was like, I am not leaving. And I drowned in that lifetime trying to save the people. So I understand that perspective of like, you can't sacrifice yourself to help everyone else, but I also can't be 100% of the Hey, beggar, you too can go to Bali and drink green juice and live like me, like that's just so like
Mm-mm.
unrealistic, because even
Mhm.
an island like Bali, it can't hold everyone, and it's not, and no, none of these places are perfect, like the Tulums and Balis and et cetera of the world, there's so much stuff happening behind the scenes too, that we're kind of like trying to create this utopian society that doesn't really exist. I think it's a stage in our healing, like a
Mhm.
stage in our healing that we need to like get away from the world, get away from our
Mhm.
triggers, get away from all of the things, and like be in this incubator where we're like living and we're around people who get it, et cetera. But I don't think that's why any of us were born to just be in it. But that could be my like humanitarian mind talking too, and I'll
Right.
recognize that. But I know for myself, I wouldn't be fulfilled not being able to, help the world in some sort of way.
Absolutely. And I love that you're saying that as well, because I had my moment of escape. Like, absolutely, I did. Like, I had to go through a deep healing in order to help and support other people and facilitate other people's healing. And I had my moment of green juice, and I have my moments of dance, and I have my moments of Tulum. And well, actually, I haven't been to the new Tulum, but so I appreciate that. But I know that for me, what you're saying is absolutely right. Thank you. Thanks to those recharging moments, I'm able to give with a full cup, right? And I have that privilege, but often always come back to giving, like
Mm-hmm.
always. And if I'm not giving, then I'm not feeling accomplished. Like my sense of purpose in this life, if I'm not giving, like I don't feel like I'm really here to doing what I come here to do. So that purpose for me is really tied from that piece of that and recharging and coming back, the balance, right?
And I do think that it is universal. I genuinely believe we are all here to be of service, and
Mhm.
being of service can be through our highest joy. It doesn't have to be the
Absolutely.
sacrifice. And I think what, people like us who tend to be like activist humanitarian, I know for myself, carried the story of I need to sacrifice myself to be of
Mm,
service. So it's like, how can
no.
we have both? They might be simultaneous, they may be different phases of our lives, but seeing the people I know who are still in Bali, like 7 years later, are they truly happy? I
Mm,
wouldn't say so.
mm,
I can't speak for all, but I'm speaking to the ones I know. It feels like there's still this void, because
mhm.
when you're only living for yourself, there will always be this void, because
Right.
that's not why we're here. We're interconnected, and
Mhm.
we're all here to hold each other's hands and raise each other up. That I think that eventually all spiritual journeys will just bring us to this same exact realization, and then anything else will just not be enough.
We're most spiritual when we're going through chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is like my, we're no, and that's a limiting belief as well, as my roommates would say here. But chaos to me, like that Durga Kali, is like, yes, wake up. What just happened in the world the last year?
Mm-hmm.
Chaos, right? So
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
boom,
what happens with
wake up.
chaos is it pushes you. You have no
That
choice
you have no
but to
choice.
to oh shit, it's happening. I need to slow down and breathe because I can feel it. Whereas a lot of times people are like, I want to meditate by the waterfall with the perfect music and this and that, but it's not preparing you for real life,
Yeah.
because when you really need those tools, it's not in that perfect environment, it's in the chaos.
Absolutely. And I really like stepped in this path when I realized, like, one, I didn't have to wear all white clothes. I wear white clothes to work, but
Mm-hmm.
that's it. Like, I still wear my earrings, and I still like my beautiful things, and I enjoy like the beauty in the world. And also when I realized that I didn't have to go up into the Himalayas and meditate for the rest of my life. Like, the work
Mm-hmm.
is actually in the world. The work
Mm-hmm.
is where you show up. The work is
Mm-hmm.
where the people are. I often call New York and LA my gold mines of work, because this is where it is at.
Mm-hmm.
People often are afraid. Like, often I would get the question, like, why, how do you work in New York? Like, you're such an empath. And it's like, I love it. That's where it is. Like, that is where my work. And so I respect people that choose to live in islands, and that's not where I belong. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, I belong in the like in the chaos and the full complexity of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think it's so important to know yourself. Yeah, Shaman Dirk, who was on the podcast, said he's the same thing. He's like, I need to be in the eye of the storm. He's like,
Yes.
because I was like, what's gonna happen to LA, this and that. Whereas, yeah, for me, I feel like I need to be a little bit removed out of it by the water, by the sea, and like that's how I recharge.
Yes.
But also I want to be in the community. That to me is super important. That like, you know, a lot of people are moving to Costa Rica right now. That at least at this stage of my life is not the place for me. It's too far removed and rural. I need to be like, we're hopping on a podcast right now and like
Yes.
be able to do that, you know? So it really takes knowing yourself and then honoring what
Absolutely.
that is. And, you know, for some people I have some friends who are like complete, like light energy beings that they just need to be holding this grid and like that's their work. Like they are like very, very light workery. And then I have some who are like social workers, like in the conversation. It's all needed and it's all so beautiful.
Yeah, and chills. Like to really acknowledge each other in that highest self, right? So it's like there are the light beings, the fairies, the like nature wonders of the world. I'm not that. I'm like the sword. I'm probably like Shaman Durek, like, you know, we're out there in the field with our swords, like, oh BS, bye, 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 you know? And then and you are like reaching New York and you're reaching New York and LA through, you know, through this podcast. So you don't have to be in the eye of the storm either, but you're utilizing tools and you know the tools that are there in order to, you know, give to that eye of the storm. And that's where I think I often say that there's three types of people. Like there's the people that are protectors, the people that are warriors, and the people that are like in between, that are supporting both, that are like holding the space, right? And no one is better than the other one. I think we're all just coming here with different roles and different ways of being.
Yeah. In my book Discover Your Dharma, I write about like thinking of the way of the village. Like in the village there were the weavers and there were the farmers and the hunters and the medicine woman, and like everyone had their own role, and you would not want the hunters to be taking care of the kids. You would not want the weavers to be making your medicine. Like you want people to be in their zone of genius. And I think like we're finally now, and honestly, thanks to the internet, finding our way back to that, finding our way back to, you know, like even 20 years ago, could I be a professional, like, I just talk about spirituality, you know, like not, you know, I would probably have to be the psychic on the street.
We probably were.
I feel something. I feel something on you. You need an egg in your bra, you know. But it's so amazing that we've chosen to reincarnate at this time and with these tools. And if you're someone who's listening to this podcast, you are fully aware of these tools, because there are a lot of people live right now who don't know what a podcast is, you know. So it's like if you're listening to this and you're aware of it, I guarantee your dharma is in some way to either gather information from these sources or put information on these sources, because we're actually creating the way of the mystery schools again, that we could sit and have conversations on like the meaning of life and truth and liberty and spirit. And it's like, in a way, we're kind of, I think we're going to look back and see these as the golden ages. As much as people like to hate on 2020, I think that this is truly like the fact that like words like shamanic or divine feminine healing or light worker, etc., are like almost common vocabulary. The fact that even Forever 21 wants to sell some fucking crystals, you know, so they're fake, but that the fact that even they are realizing that so many people want that, like this is a huge, huge shift that we're in. And I think that when we zoom out and we have conversations like this, we realize like, wow, we're going to look back on these times. It's like, you know, I love looking back at the early 2000s and 90s because I'm like, my Neopets and like all the things of then. But you didn't realize it when you were in it, like what a pivotal time that was, even though it was pivotal in a different way. But I think we're going to look back to this. Yeah, first cell phones, first this. And it's like now it's like, what are these things going to it's not about knowing that these things exist. Now it's what are we going to do with them? And that's what's super exciting.
Yes. I mean, what a time to really, like, we went from going way out, expand, to like contract and in, like way to look in. And that's where we started finding ourselves at the highest level. Potentially, a lot of us still had a lot of wounding that we needed to look at, you know, and being enclosed and at home was like a way of like looking at all of our like, you know, shadow and wound and fear of like not being enough, not having enough, not like all of these things. And what a time to really, it's a renaissance. It's like,
Yeah.
you are okay, you are safe no matter what's happening out there. We've got a community, planet Earth, that is willing to step
I mean,
up.
I have spoken to so many people saying that my dad, my whoever, for the first time is open to, you know, even my parents, I told you they did family constellation.
Right.
Honestly, had this quarantine not happened, maybe they wouldn't have been open to that. So many people for the first time questioning their career, their relationships, their home, their everything. If it wasn't for this quarantine, that wouldn't have happened. Now, the steps you might have to take with that realization may be very difficult. You know, they may be painful. There may be a breakup or a career change or move or something like that. But awareness is always going to bring you closer to truth. So it's always worth it overall.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yay. So many rabbit holes. But I love
Wow.
conversations like this because it is important to just like, yeah, like even like with podcasting, you know, it's not about a question and an answer. You don't have the answer. I don't have the fucking answer. Like we're learning, like we're having this conversation for us. We're
Totally. I think we just
it
went in a cycle. And also, like we started in one place, we went all as the rabbit hole. Yeah, but like we definitely there was answers. I can't wait to hear this again. And just like I think there were some answers.
Yeah. And it's like the answer is that like nothing, like I think that's what we're learning as a collective. It's like embrace duality, embrace that I could say two completely contradictory things that they could both be true in different ways. So it's like embrace it all, question deeper, trust your intuition, and know that overall, even though things are really uncertain right now, we're going towards, I would say, the most certain path we've ever been on.
Absolutely. Ask for help, support another, you know. Yeah, we're here together in this journey. Some of us feel like we have it figured out some days yes, some days no.
Yeah.
You know, it's a journey. Life is a journey, and may we continue to expand and grow in the best way possible.
Yeah. So any final tips for listeners right now just to navigate the uncertainty of this time?
Yeah, I think like right now, though we want to be plugged in and connected to news sources and all of these things, and you know it's a privilege not to be connected to these things, but also just to like really go in a little bit. Like I know that we want to be looking at the news and seeing who's going to do that and this and all of this, just connecting to our breath and closing our eyes. And if we don't feel like meditating and if we don't feel like doing anything, then that's fine too. And just acknowledging and accessing your own power, your own innate like fire that's in there, and knowing that whatever the result of this time is, like this is part of why you came here to be. Like this is why you are here in this moment. We are literally in the birth, the threshold, the transformation of this time. And as you're saying, the Renaissance, enjoy it. As hard as that sounds, I know that it's rougher for some than others, and we're never going to live through this moment again. So this, what you're doing right now, whether it's watching CNN, whether it's opening your journal, whether it's painting a huge canvas, whether it's going for a walk, whatever this moment is for you is transformational. And that's what every single moment of our life is. So just really reconnecting to ourselves, taking a deep breath, closing our eyes, and being there for one another is really what this time is about. And I hope that, you know, we can really move forward in this earth and keep opening and keep awakening.
Yes, sister. Yes. So where can listeners connect with you and dive in deeper with your work?
My website is www.manuela, Manuela, Welton, WELTON.com. And then my Instagram as well, same name, Manuela Welton. And yeah, I look forward to connecting further.
Yay. And I'll have those linked in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom, knowledge, and channeling with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. What an honor. What a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Highlight of my
Yes.
Yes, everything.
Yes. Thank
Beautiful.
you.